Hello, good afternoon. I am joined by the very lovely Sadie Snow, and we are going to talk about this incredible new Hallmark series that we get to watch when I believe it's every Sunday.
Yes, every Sunday. Thank
Uh,
you for
and
asking.
my pleasure. As a avid Hallmark watcher and fan, I love to see like new generations of Hallmark like shows and movies and kind of carry that those traditions. I love like the feel good aspects that any Hallmark project really kind of gives you. Is that
Yeah,
really something also that kind of drew you to this project? And being a part of the Hallmark family, of course.
yeah, for sure. Hallmark is obviously really well known for like their the heart that's in all their projects and some of those like family themes and that kind of feeling of like somewhere to come home to and I would say that that was really at the center of our creative process. I think like it really felt like a family working on the show. And then at the same time, I think this is kind of like a new um a new direction for the network. And that was also super exciting for me. And I think that both things together make for an excellent show because not only are we going to be, you know, really meeting the classic Hallmark fans where they're at, but I think that people who have never really come across Hallmark or who are new to the network or who are just kind of like dipping their toe in and seeing what's going on over here are going to be really excited to see what this project can be for them.
It's got definitely a unique aspect that we really haven't seen before from Hallmark, like you're talking about. Obviously, we get the feel good part, but the new aspect of time travel.
Yeah.
So that's something that's really cool to get to watch as well, and kind of the back and forth, past present connections that play a big role in actually the whole premise and part of your character as well. What was the initial breakdown like for you about your character Alice, and what did you really connect with her?
Yeah, for sure. Well, the initial um interaction that I had was I was looking at scenes from that first episode where mostly you're dealing with Alice's reaction to her parents' divorce and the fact that she's being moved to a small town to live with her grandmother who she doesn't know. And so for me, I feel like I could tell from Alice that she really at her heart was like a really loving, caring, like creative, kind of like fun person, but she had these like really, really intense walls up because of what was going on with her family. And so I think I kind of immediately gravitated towards that character because I'm like, oh, she's got a lot going on, but like she's really performing this like closed off, like snotty teenager attitude because she's kind of trying to protect herself from what's going on with her parents. And then there was also this introduction of the time travel theme. And in my audition, I actually did that scene where Alice comes down the stairs and she sees her, so she sees Dell and she sees Jacob and she sees her grandfather. And then she sits down at the dinner table and she sees how loving and warm they are. And that for me was like, I got just that taste of the two timelines, like how incredibly angry and like, kind of like emotional and intense she is in the present day, and then how warm and sweet and open she is in this 1999 timeline. And that was so exciting from an audition standpoint. So I was in right from the get go.
Yeah, it's got this great kind of like full circle connection between family and the different dynamics of family and what family actually means and what consists of a family. And so I love that Hallmark is always continuing to kind of evolve and obviously show that type of representation, which is important as well. Because family obviously doesn't necessarily mean blood, and obviously in this case it does, but family can be what we make of it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like throughout the season we see that, someone like Elliot is family to Dell and to Kat, and then eventually to Alice as well. And that Alice has gone back in time to be with her family, but they don't know that she's their family. But they don't know that she's their family. So she creates this really close bond with them, and to her, they're her family, but to them, she's, a really close friend that they trust and they love, and they include her in all their family things. But when it comes down to it, they don't know the significance of that relationship. And so that's kind of an interesting theme as well.
Coming up, I know you already started to sort of tease a little bit about those type of family dynamics, but also between Alice and Kat, what are some of the building blocks or things that we might see from them kind of bridging the gaps and the issues they may face together or start to build?
Yeah, so I mean, in the present day, you can see that Alice is really lashing out at her mom, and she blames her mom a lot for everything that's going wrong in her life. And as she travels back in time and becomes best friends with her mom as a teenager, it gives her a bit more insight into what her mom is going through, what she's been through well before Alice was ever alive, what that did to her as a person. And she kind of sees her mom as more of like a fully formed human being, and less of just like, a mom who every single thing that she does causes some consequence for her teenage daughter and deserves to like be punished for it. And not only does Alice kind of befriend her mom and like end up having a really good time, and like episode 3 is coming up and they really start developing like a friendship relationship. It's super fun. It's like very 90s. But also Alice really sees her mom through some of her difficult moments in her teenage life, and so I think it gives her some perspective that she needs in the present day.
Yeah, I enjoy that kind of lens shifting, that we get to see the different perspective. We see Kat's perspective, we see Dell, we see Kat Alice Dello. But then we also see, like you're talking about, Alice switching things up and getting to learn more about her mom and see her through different lights and different like lenses as she goes back in the past to the 90s. So that's also really intriguing and really fun part of watching the show too, is getting to see all those different types of perspectives and how they play into one another as well, and kind of layer it all together and within the show. It's very complex. But it's really riveting to watch that way. That's what I enjoyed, the building those blocks and getting to see different viewpoints.
Thank you. Yeah, I think her relationship, the closer she gets with her mom as a teenager, I think the harder it is for her to come to terms with her mom being a really different person in the present day. And so there's this separation in her mind of the two. But I think slowly throughout the season they'll come to be more of the same thing in her mind. And that's a really interesting journey for as an actor, but I think also for the audience to look forward to.
As young teenage girls, we sort of tend to lead with emotion a lot. Everything is very emotionally charged, and I still think that Alice is very mature for a teenager as well. That she can handle all of these kind of very emotionally charged adult situations too.
Yeah, and I think it's almost like Alice kind of ends up having a bit of like an old soul, but not because she is an old soul, but because she goes back in time and gets this like wisdom that like is not a normal thing to know. And so throughout the season she has to kind of figure out like, okay, how do I act in the present day when I know how this all got to be the way that it is, and the responsibility that comes with knowing the things about your family that you know are once in a lifetime, or never in a lifetime, I guess. The time travel thing is not normal, but you know, she ends up with lots of responsibility to her family, and yeah, I think it would be easy to be like, oh, Alice is just like a snotty teenager, but the moment she has this knowledge about her family, she's like, she needs to figure out what to do with it and how to help her mom and her grandmother like find a way to communicate.
Well, of course, you get to work with the incredible Andie MacDowell as grandmother Dell, and then you get to work with Chyler Leigh, who plays your mom Kat. These two veteran, again, inimitable talents that are very strong, empowering women. And I'd love to hear a little bit about, getting to work with them, and of course, maybe some things that they've kind of imparted, or maybe even you've just kind of learned and admire from working with them, maybe organically, not necessarily something they might have also imparted either. But
Yeah, for sure. Well, you know, obviously there's a certain amount of like nerves that come with finding out that you're working with two people who have such, you know, have already had such incredible careers and so much experience, and being the person who hasn't had that experience yet. And so um I I was of course nervous, but they're both so warm and so generous, and I don't think, you know, I don't think I expected to be having all these like really profound conversations that we had about the script and the story and our characters and our relationships. But, you know, I really appreciate and admire them for how like open they were and how willing they were to, you know, let me into their process and like have these conversations about our characters when, you know, we're all kind of on our own tracks, our own journeys filming this season, and everyone's kind of, it's easy to get lost in your own process and your own character, but we would come together in these scenes as a family, and like I just really really am grateful for those conversations we had about the story. I think they made those scenes a lot richer, and they made me think about what their characters were going through and how I could contribute to that. And yeah, so I really look up to them for how generous they've been with me as like, you know, a new, relatively new performer and person in the industry. And yeah, it's just been fantastic.
I mean, Andie's body of work, obviously, alone, the incredible projects that she's been a part of. She's an icon, legendary lady, and Chyler's work with Supergirl, and that's something that's really resonated. And I've been a fan of hers, and I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and watching her in her work in the 2000s with Not Another Teen Movie, and then of course, obviously, can't not talk about Grey's Anatomy. Lexi Gray.
Yeah, she's a fan favorite for sure in terms of all of those things. Yeah, it's one of the really fun parts about this show is, you know, the fans of Chyler and Andie who may not have interacted with Hallmark before are joining us on this season, and they already have this love for Chyler, they already have this love for Andie, and they're coming along for the ride, and they're falling in love with this story. And so it's been really fantastic to see that too. You know, these are people who come with like really really devoted fan base who are embracing this series, and we're so grateful for that.
Mentioned episode 3 coming up. Is there a specific episode that you're kind of looking forward to, like fan reaction, or something, that episode that was like your favorite that you're looking forward to maybe watching yourself and seeing how, if if you haven't seen any of the episodes before, ahead of everything airing?
Yeah, well, I I think episode 3 is one of the ones for me that I was excited for, just because I think, like I said before, it's like super nostalgic, it's super 90s, it's super fun, for especially the teenagers in the series. Like there's just like that world kind of comes to life. And then in terms of, you know, my I think maybe episode 6, for me, I'm curious to see. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm really excited to see how it comes to life, because when I read it on the page, like my heart was pounding. Like it feels like it's just like accelerating to the end of that episode. And one of my favorite scenes of the whole season is in there. It's between Kyler and someone who has not been revealed yet. I'm not in it, but I read it on the page, and I saw it in the cast read through, and I got chills. So I'm so excited for that episode.
With our limited time remaining, I would love to ask you a little bit about kind of what you have taken away from being a part of this series and what has really resonated with you personally and maybe professionally as well.
Yeah. I mean, there's of course like, the underlying themes of like family, and if you could have 5 more minutes with someone in your family, would, in any time in your life, would you? And so, I mean, for me, in terms of professionally, it's changed everything, because this is like, my first big thing. I'm so excited to finally share this with the world. It's so personal. I care so much about the story and about the people who made it happen. And then personally, I just feel like it's been great to really draw on inspiration from my own life, from the generations of women in my life, like my mom, my grandmother, my sister, and I just have even that much more appreciation for them and everything I've learned from them. So it's been fantastic in that sense.
Well, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. I want to say that again, this is really such a special series, and it's nice to be able to watch with. You're talking about the generations of your family, and it's nice that it kind of transcends age demographics, and you kind of all can watch it together and make Sunday a special family night, and that's a hallmark of Hallmark.
Yes, exactly. I'm like the idea that that's a possibility is absolutely one of the best things about the series coming out. I've met a few, teenagers who are excited to watch with their moms or their grandparents, or grandparents who are excited to invite their teenage daughter or granddaughter to come over on Sunday night for dinner and to watch. And I'm like, to be able to create those opportunities is just like so fun and so exciting.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your time today, and